Welcome back to Blender for Blogs. We're using Blender to edit videos for our blogs. As you know, I am Justin, and I was just trying to see how fast I could say that. Yeah. Anyway, in the last video, we talked about recording our screen. So doing a little screen capture so we can overlay that on our video for explainer videos. In this case, it's B-roll footage. So the things that I was explaining in my promo video, I wanted to kind of show you quick clips of that, which I put together here and here and here. But since we were talking about recording our screen, I thought talking about privacy would be a good idea. So like creating privacy strips or privacy bars in case you want to show your screen, but you don't want to show all of it. So you want to hide a portion of your screen, such as a file tree or maybe a taskbar or something that you might not want others to see. So after you record it, then you can kind of go in and use Blender to kind of mask that out or block that out. So I'm going to show you 3 different ways you can do that. Now you can see here I don't actually have any privacy strips or privacy bars on here because if you watch my earlier videos I do because I didn't use a separate screen. But now I'm using a separate screen that's not my main display to record these, so the need for blocking things out is very minimal for me now, which I do highly recommend. If you have another screen or if you can hide your taskbar or hide the things that you want, like for example, let me pull up, let's see. So here's our demo Blender file folder, and then we have all of our Blender iterations that I've saved in here. What I did basically, what I used to do is I used to create a privacy block here where their navigation pane was. But in Windows, if you're using Windows, if you go to Layout and click Navigation Pane, then you can toggle that on and off. And so now I don't need to do that. So it just saves me a lot of time. So if you can do that and save you time, I would recommend that. But if you can't, if you only have one screen to work with and you don't have any other way to hide things or block things that you want, then the next step is to do it in Blender. So I'm going to go over to my privacy strips here, and I'm going to scroll in here. You can kind of see a little bit. Now I've actually already blurred stuff out that I didn't want to see, but I wanted them there for demonstration purposes. So the very first thing that we're going to do is going to use a black bar, basically. So, and that's pretty easy. So let's see, let's go home and go home. I don't want to go home. Okay. Anyway, so we have, I just did this like 25-second video. You can see that I'm just kind of moving stuff around in my Google Slides account here. And yeah, so you can see it's a video, and I just did 25 seconds worth. So what I'm going to do now is go to the beginning here, and then I'm going to do Shift A, and I'm going to add in an effect strip color like normal, like you should know how to do already. And then I'm going to grab that and then just snap it there. You can also just change the length of it to match the length of your movie. Now, to make this really, really simple, if I just need to block like the bottom or the side or the top, I'm not even going to mess with the scaling or the cropping. I'm just going to hit image offset, and then I'm going to just bring it down. Of course, overdrop as always, as I always forget. So bring that down, and there you go. So then here's my taskbar. Then I'm just going to go and do that. And as you can see, actually, in my earlier videos, this is what I did for like the first half of my videos before I decided to use another screen to record. Yeah, so if you want to just do the top, you can do the top too. Okay, so that is one way. The second way is pretty much the same thing, but then you can use either the cropping here or the transform tool to just make a little strip like in the middle. Like for example, you can see now in Google Slides there, or in most browsers, you can hide this bookmarks bar. So then you don't have to use this. But if you forget to hide your bookmarks bar and you notice that while you're editing, well, you can just do a little privacy strip, which I've done before. So basically, you just add a color And what you're going to want to do is take that. I'm going to just clear this offset. And now, again, you can use the crop, and basically you just, crop the top, and then you would move that up. Again, the bottom, cropping the bottom and the top basically kind of do the same thing. This is why I don't like it. It's just it's so weird. I don't like this crop. See, I'm cropping the bottom, but it's cropping the top. Well, it's not really. It's pushing the top into the bottom, so it is cropping the bottom, and then I have to remove it or move it again, and all of that stuff. So you can do that, and this is really simple, so it might work in that instance. I try to stay away from this as much as possible, and use instead. Oh, get this offset here. Just a transform. So effect strip, Shift A, effect strip transform, and then I actually can hide this color here because this is going to act as our color. In fact, if you don't hide that, and then let's say you select your transform and you start scaling. So I'm just going to start scaling this down. You see nothing is happening. And you're like, you're going to be like, what in the world? How come this just doesn't work? Which some things in Blender just don't work. But that's because it's, first of all, you're on replace. So we want to change that to overdrop. Okay, we've changed it to overdrop. Well, nothing's happened now. Still nothing's happened. So then we change this one. That one's actually already on overdrop. So I don't know what's happening. Well, what is happening is that you have the color still underneath in full screen. So you have to hide this. And you can see if I actually just lower that opacity just a little bit, there you can see if I do the transform, so it's still doing the transform, but the color you can see is still full screen in the background there. So yeah, so just hide that. And now we can do our scaling. I'm actually not going to do uniform scaling because I want 1 all the way across the X, and then we're just going to take the Y down. And then I'm going to hit Shift to slow it down just a little bit so I can be a little bit more accurate. So something like this. And then I'm going to move that up to somewhere about here. And let's zoom in here because basically I want to just make a little privacy bar that goes right across my bookmarks toolbar right up there, and kind of move it and then scale it to match that. So that's good about there. Okay, so now we just want to match the color, and that's easy enough. Just select your color and go and adjust the color to whatever you think fits. Now, of course, I can actually just do this and do a color drop picture and match it there. Boom, and now it matches exactly where I want it to go. And that's easy enough. So those are the first 2 ways that you can use your privacy strip. Now, the last way is, of course, the way I actually recorded this video, and I edited it first to make this blur effect. So maybe there's a nice cool blur effect that you want to see something is happening. Maybe you want to actually see a file tree when you're navigating through your folders, but you don't want people to see what the names of those files are. So what you can do with that is pretty much like this. And I'm going to use, let's see, I guess we'll use the same one here. And I want to just crank this all the way up. Oh, yeah, so that is all the way at white. We want to make sure that that is white. And let's actually just move this down because I want to show you there. So like maybe like right across my eyes right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is move this up 2 times, and then I'm going to add in an adjustment layer. Now, this effect strip is different than most of the rest of them because an adjustment layer, which is down here at the bottom, is all on its own. It's not connected to anything, so it's independent. But what it does is whatever adjustments you make to it are going to be shown on the strips, all the strips below it. So if I have the adjustment layer up here, then everything below it will be part of that adjustment layer. So just keep that in mind. Now, to the adjustment layer, I'm actually going to do Shift A and then add in a Gaussian blur. So here's your blur effect. And the reason we're adding it to the adjustment layer and not this is because we want to mask it. We want to use this bar as a mask like we've done in the past. So we want just this area blurred. Now let me I'm just going to hide this. But what's going to happen is the Gaussian blur is going to use the adjustment layer to blur the whole picture because everything below this adjustment layer is going to be blurred. So what we want to do is select our blur strip, come over here and adjust the size on the X and size on the Y. And I like 30 has worked good for me. So 30, you can see it's already started there on the X and then 30 on the Y, enter. And now we have that adjustment layer all blurred. Now I can just hide the adjustment layer because basically the Gaussian blur has taken over this adjustment layer. Okay, and so we have our regular and our adjustment layer here, or our Gaussian blur. Okay, so now if you remember how we used masks, we want to use the mask in a way where all of the white area is shown and everything else is transparent. So the way we do that is, let's actually name this mask. So we want to say transform, we'll just keep that transform and then I'm just going to say mask, transform mask. And I'm also going to select the color and just name the color color mask. Okay, just like that. So we want to select our Gaussian blur first, go to modifiers, add strip modifier mask, and then select our mask down here. Make sure we're on strip, and then select our transform mask. Okay, so now what we have is just a white bar on a black background. So, of course, Gaussian blur, go over here, replace to overdrop, and it's still just white. Now, why is it still just white? Well, remember that when we use something as a mask, we need to hide it because if we don't hide it, then it's still just showing. So if I just come over here and I hit H to hide, oh, now that whole area, look at that, is being used as a mask. And the cool thing about this is that you can just move that to wherever you need to move it. And so I'm going to start moving this, and you can see when I'm moving it, at least on my computer, nothing is happening. And that's because apparently this is too much information for Blender to do in real time. I don't know why. So I have to hit refresh sequencer, and then once I do that, then you can see it's moved. So what I like to do is hide the Gaussian blur and then unhide the transform mask so that I can see it moving in real time, and then do the placement of this where I want that to be. Ooh, let's use our shift to make that a little bit slower. So let's do something like this. If we want one of these little dudes to be blurred out, then down just a little bit like that, and then over. So just right over that. Boom. All right, and then just hide that, and then unhide the Gaussian blur, and refresh sequencer. Boom, there we go. And that is how you can use the blur effect to blur the videos. Now, if I play it, it's going to be a little bit slow, but you can see the effect that it has. Now, if this slows down your system too much, what you might want to do is just actually just hide these masks. Oh, they are hidden actually already. So select your Gaussian blur, go to modifiers, and then just hide that. So then the whole thing is blurry. And then just render that out depending on how long your video is. And then you can render out the whole thing as a blurry video and then just import that blurry video in here and then add a mask to that. And that might help with your frames per second so you can get that timing better. But anyway, So those are just some tips that if you want to protect your privacy when you're screen recording, you can. So next video is the last video of our phase 3. So stay tuned.